So welcome to the last video, and in this video I'm going to be talking about emotions. Now there was one question on the quiz that related to your emotions, asking about what kind of emotions are you most commonly in, what state of emotion is very prevalent for you. Now this is super important, and reasons may not be entirely obvious, but the better, the healthier the state of emotion that you're in other words, those higher states of emotion, joy, happiness, gratitude, appreciation, peace, all of those states have a huge influence on the way your body functions in ways you probably aren't even aware of. And in the same token, those lower states of emotion, depression, frustration, anxiety, those stressful states, those are very much associated or have a very powerful influence on our bodies too. So for example, you'll find, and you may know this from experience as well as the research, but when you're in more of a lower state, a depressed state a lot of the time, for example, that's commonly associated with a great deal more ill health conditions. A lot of things tend to go more wrong more frequently in terms of our health and well-being. We get ill more frequently when we're in those lower states than certainly compared to when we're in the higher states. The research backs that up. We also know that our emotional state, its relationship to our heart and feeling more heart-based emotions, those emotions of love, joy, gratitude, appreciation, those have been very strongly correlated or been shown to influence even our DNA. So they've actually measured this in a laboratory environment where they've taken DNA and seen changes in the DNA in response to activating the heart through emotions such as a gratitude. So that's actually been proven, tested. I think it was the HeartMath Institute that ran these studies, and they actually showed that it impacts our DNA. And in the same way, stress has also been shown to impact our DNA in a very negative way. So this is one example. Other examples, hormonally. If we look at the hormones associated to stress-based emotions, we get higher levels of things like cortisol, adrenaline, which make up and influence our emotional state. And in some other research run by the HeartMath Institute, they've actually looked at stress levels by specifically measuring cortisol levels in the body in response to what they call heart coherence. Heart coherence is a technique, which I'll talk to you about in a moment, that helps us to activate the heart. And when we activate the heart center, we experience greater levels of love, joy, acceptance, and we also see changes hormonally. Just in the same way I just talked about changes that take place in our DNA, there's been changes being measured in our hormones in response to this, where cortisol levels reduce significantly. There's actually a hormone released by the heart that suppresses cortisol or counteracts the effects of cortisol, something called atriopeptide. Now, we also find the reverse of that when we're not in that state of emotion. What we tend to find is we're much more likely to see elevations in cortisol. Emotions such as depression have actually been measured again and seen vast increases in the production of cortisol and adrenaline, which are the stress-based hormones, when we're in a state of depression. So these hormones have very negative impacts on our health and well-being if they're released for chronic levels. They serve a purpose when we're in these states for a temporary period of time, but what research shows is high levels of chronic release of cortisol is associated to many different types of disease states of ill health. A couple of other ways in which our emotions can affect our health. One way is through the nervous system. So when we're in a stress state, we activate the side of the nervous system known as a sympathetic nervous system. That's that stress flight response state. It's a state of reactivity. it's a state of emergency for the body. It's associated to the release of cortisol and adrenaline. And then with the opposite side, when we're not in those stress states, when we're in those more heart-based emotions, when we're in more a presence of acceptance, love, gratitude, joy, those types of emotions, what we see is higher activation of the parasympathetic nervous system. So the balance between the parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system is very important, as a high correlation to our levels of health and energy. So the more time we spend in the parasympathetic nervous system, which is that system responsible for rest and repair and the organs and glands associated to that, the more time we spend there and the stronger that part of the nervous system is, the better our health, the better energy we have, the better vitality we have. So we want that. So we want to be in these higher states of emotions as often as possible. Again, relating it back to mitochondria, which is those organelles responsible for our energy levels, or playing a big part in our energy levels. Again, lower states of emotion have been shown to suppress their function. So it all adds up, it all makes sense on many, many levels. Our goal really is to be in a higher state of emotion as often, as frequently as possible. Now, that's not necessarily the easy thing to do. We all want to be in those states anyway, right? No, not many of us want to remain in a state of depression, of anxiety, of fear, of stress. Although those emotions are very addictive and many of us kind of gravitate to that probably more often than is healthy for us, there are some simple things you can do to start to gravitate more away from those emotions and help put you in a higher state of emotion more often, more frequently. And that's the case the more frequently you use these techniques that I'm going to share with you, these simple processes, the more frequently that you do them, the higher state of energy, the higher state of health you're going to have. So the first one is gratitude. You may well be familiar with this concept, but we want to be in a more with gratitude we have for life, for ourselves, for others, for everything we have, for everything we don't have, for the challenges we come up against, for the support that we receive in life. The more grateful we can be for that, or the more the healthier we're going to be. So we want to actually not just do this by happenstance, we actually want to deliberately create this experience for ourselves. So the best thing to do is have a practice of gratitude. It's great to just have this as an everyday attitude, but also have a practice for it. The more you can intentionally set some time aside, it doesn't need to be a long period of time, 5 minutes a day. Great to do before bed, by the way. This puts you in a perfect state for good quality sleep. But actually start to write down, what are some of the things you're grateful for? It doesn't need to be big things. It can be the smallest things. In fact, it's the everyday things that we are typically, we can all be grateful for certain things in our lives. Even when things aren't going as well as we'd like, there's still many, many things, the everyday things in life that we can be grateful for. In fact, when they've interviewed people who've lost someone recently, gone through a period of grief, they found that the things that they missed the most are those simple everyday interactions. Waking up next to that person, having an argument with that person, disagreeing on something, even simple things like that, just having them around, sharing a meal with that person. Those are the things they miss. They don't miss the big stuff, the big Hollywood moments that we often think those are the things we should be grateful for. Actually, it's the small things that matter most in life. So it's taking a moment to do that. Now, it's not just about writing these things down. Where the power is when we can connect with these things emotionally. So it's great to write them down, but also visualize them, imagine them, feel them in your heart. The more you can do that, the more you're going to experience these higher states of emotion. Over a period of time, the more you'll gravitate to these emotions, the more you're purposely creating them through your own mind, through your own thinking. So this can be a very, very powerful technique. It's worked very well for myself. I found it very useful and a great way to elevate my state. And even when I'm feeling periods of low, this can help too. So that is one method, and linked to that is this heart coherence. So heart coherence, if you ever want to check it out, go to HeartMathInstitute.com, I think it's .com, and on there you can learn this technique properly. But simply, heart coherence is really just about putting your attention, taking a moment, a few minutes, and just sitting there, putting your attention on your heart and just feeling the energy, the emotion around your heart. And as you do that, try to bring to mind someone that's you care about, someone that's important to you, someone that you love, someone that you have strong appreciation for. The more you can get present to them whilst putting attention on your heart, you'll start to feel some energy, start to feel some warmth around the area of your heart. So when you do this, you're taking advantage of everything I just talked about in the power of the heart and your emotions in influencing your physiology. So this is a super powerful thing. With practice, I recommend you do this to begin with your eyes closed, but with practice, you can do this anywhere, anytime, wherever you are. The more frequently you practice, the more frequently you benefit. So this is a very simple technique. Check it out on the HeartMath Institute. There's also videos on YouTube on heart coherence. You can learn about this a little bit more. You can understand the technique. I will soon be putting up a video on my own YouTube channel where I share this technique as well. So check that out. So that's really it for the emotions. That's it for this whole series of videos I wanted to share with you to support what you learn from the quiz. If some of the things I've talked about, obviously I've talked about nutrition and exercise and movement, I've talked about your environment, I've talked about emotions, your breath, all of these things, and the importance that many of these areas play in our health and wellness. If you want to learn more about these things, check out my YouTube videos, connect with me on Facebook. I'm always sharing stuff about this on Facebook. I've got online programs, coaching programs where I help people in these areas as well. So feel free to check those out. If you subscribe to this quiz, then you'll be on my mailing list, and I'll be keeping updated on future events and programs I might have where you can learn a lot more about this and how to actually apply it more specifically in your life. So with that, thank you very much for taking the time to watch these videos. I hope they've been really powerful and useful to you, and hopefully I'll get to meet you in person one day.